It's easy to think that animation is reserved for games and flashy applications, but in truth, you've been using animation all along. The iPhone uses animation in many applications. If you're animating a screen flip, or you're using an alert view, or you're going from one table view to another, or if the screen is being changed from portrait to landscape, that's all being done automatically. And this really helps with the quality of the user experience. There's a bunch of classes provided to help with this. This collection of classes is called Core Animation. Now, a lot of the times you're going to be using these without actually saying so. They're built into many transitions on the iPhone, but sometimes you want a bit more control over what's happening. Now, of course, we could do an entire course just on animation on the iPhone, but it's nice to know a few techniques to add a little bit of polish to your own applications. So first question, what exactly do we animate? Well, the core animation classes work with the idea of layers, and these can contain graphical elements, shapes, or images, and you can move these. You can grow them, rotate them, shrink them, perform all sorts of transformations on their kind of graphical identity. Now, layers have many properties, and not only can these properties be animated, they actually already are. And what that means is if you change one of these properties, it won't just flip from one value to another, it will quickly animate. If you, for example, change position from point A to point B, it will try and move from point A to point B. If you go from completely opaque to completely transparent, it will try and fade that transition. Now, the default animation is pretty fast, it's a quarter of a second, but it still adds that nice professional touch to your visual changes. Now, all the controls we've been using in our nib files are UI views through inheritance. And as UI views internally use layers to render themselves, it becomes simple to begin your animation journey by learning how to animate a UI view. It even gives you some helper methods to group all your animation details together. The way that you do this is that you gather all the changes you want to make in an animation block. And what an animation block is it's a little block of code that starts with a call to the begin animations : context. And it's a class method, meaning it's actually called on the UI view class itself, not on any particular instance of that. And then your block is going to end with a call to commit animations class method. And in the middle, what you're going to do is you're going to talk about what you want to change and how you want to change it. You're going to set some properties and say, I want my animation to be 1 second. I want it to repeat 10 times. I want it to auto reverse. So if it goes from point A to point B, it will then go from point B to point A and A to point B again, and so on. And then you actually describe on your object what changes you want to make. In this case, we're grabbing hold of the center position of an object. That has an X and a Y position. Those are being set as floats and then being changed. And what's going to happen is when the call to commit animation is done, the animation will trigger. So you're gathering all these things up so that it doesn't trigger before you're ready. The commit animations call is going to return immediately. The animations are actually done in another thread so that they don't interfere with your program logic. For example, if you have animations that last for a few seconds. So while you can, of course, do a few more complex transformations than just moving the position of something, this is the general idea when you're animating with a UI view. And if you're at least reasonably clear on the idea of what's being animated, that we're gathering a bunch of changes together and marking the start and end of them with begin animations and commit animations, well, in the next section, we'll go ahead and actually write the code to do